stress in Sydney CBD. What does it mean to residential property? We're going to tell you what's happening in America as well. On the ground in New York City, Josh Wapshott.
Morning. Yes, live just outside the Empire State Mark this morning. So awesome article you've shared with the staff here. US distress could inspire housing supply shifts in Australia. Basically, what they're talking about is the shift of people using these office spaces. You know, we've had ever since that COVID period, a lot of work from home. Basically, the big topic coming out of America is now these big assets, buildings are sitting there vacant. And they're thinking now, look, they're not serving their original purpose. Could we turn these into an opportunity to add to the pipeline of supply of housing? So very interesting article.
Not a lot of people would know, but I think people would assume that the waves from COVID have passed. But a couple of things that are still in the wake are that these leases on these buildings are the longest leases in the country. So the leases in CBD buildings are not 1+1 or 3+3 or 5+5, but often 10 by 10. So even if corporates weren't able to make change and exit out of leases, or they were still willing to make change and exit out of leases, those changes still haven't happened because they were on such fat leases. So what they did is they sublet spaces, or they've left spaces empty. And what people also don't know is that the grade of offices has been more important than ever. So when we used to have A, B, and C grade offices, D grade offices, there used to be a nice blend between all those classes depending on the business. Now people are chasing A grade offices and B grade offices, and they will not tolerate C or D grade offices, which has orphaned a lot of offices in the city.
Yeah, correct. You're definitely right there, Mark. It's really like anything in the market. Obviously, when some of that supply demand diminishes due to the fact that not everyone is working in an office, basically what that means is supply outperforms demand, which means that pretty much the people that are still looking for an office are going to pick off that top echelon of options, and that generally is your A and B grade. So exactly right. And it sort of leaves us with, and sometimes quite big buildings left vacant and pretty much not being used or not getting the best use out of them as possible, or people are simply just stuck on a lease paying for something that they're not going to use.
And I think corporates and office users, office tenants, were hoping there was going to be more of an intake into offices as opposed to work from home. So I think probably in 2025 we're starting to see that the uptick come back to office situations, but the whole sort of Monday and Friday work from home, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday you go into the office again. Even just with that carriage, that's still 30 or 40% less office space needed in terms of hours per week. So there's still a massive gaping hole in the whole office CBD thing. In America, the articles are suggesting that there's going to be a huge switch from those offices into residential. And what you also may not know is it's one of the zonings that allows for it in Sydney and generally in cities. So, for instance, in DY, well, let's use Brookvale as an example. If you're not using the industrial warehouses, you can't really do anything else with them, i.e. switch them to residential. The zoning doesn't allow, with that sort of evasive use, to put a house in between all the warehouses, or a unit block in between all the warehouses, because a lot of them are 24-hour industry. But often the office category does allow for residential to go in. So you could well find that our CBDs of the world and the cities of the world, particularly referencing Sydney, you may find that it's more economical to repurpose the building. You probably won't knock it down depending on the size, but you'll probably repurpose it into residential, make a lot more money than old offices.
Yeah, and another thing I think is a big sticking point for the city, as well as, fixing that issue there. I think bringing more residencies in is also going to fix the fact that a lot of the businesses are struggling in the CBD because they are missing out on that extra traffic that they're quite used to. I know I most recently went into the city a couple of months ago, and I actually found it quite shocking to see, out on lunchtime. I used to live in the city in Haymarket, and always hustle and bustle, but when I was there a couple of months ago, the food court's quiet. So I'd imagine something like this is not only going to help fix housing problems and pricing, but it's also going to help support the local businesses through the CBD, which is very important.
And I think, look, I'm not a very political. I don't have many figureheads in politics that I love, but I think with Mrs. Beresford-Lujulian putting the sorry that getting that stuff like the metro organised, like good transport, that sort of helps. But it does raise the question, and in conclusion, what will our city look like over the next 5 or 15 years in the wake of COVID and work from home? Will it be repurposed more of a cultural lifestyle hub, or will it continue to do what it did in the 80s and 90s and just be office?
Yeah, well, you have seen that there has been a slight shift back from working from home, but like you said, generally that shift back to the office space is not a full week anymore. A lot of the time they may pull them back into the office, but a lot of people I've been speaking to that work within the CBD, it's not your traditional 5. You're sort of looking at max 3 days in the city, 2 work from home. So there has been a lot of that talk recently with a lot of big bosses saying, scrap the work from home, let's bring them back into the office. But of people I've been speaking to is like, yes, there is that change of let's get them back in the offices, but it's still that aspect of 3 days in the office, 2 days from home. There is definitely that change and that gap in the market there where people are still not totally using the space, and we might be able to utilize it better to help support the population of Sydney.
So Josh Wapshott, expert, 2035, what is the office market, what does the Sydney CBD look like? Will it look like it used to? Will it look like it does? Will it be more residential? What's your opinion?
My opinion is that they're probably, Australia's if you look at what's going on around the world at the minute, Australia's in its own little paradise down here away from a lot of the drama. I see that our population's probably going to only increase over the coming years, especially by 2035. And that's going to require more housing. So I believe we're probably going to have a more centralized business district. So, a lot of those businesses will probably move closer in together. And we might see that opportunity where a lot of these office spaces on the outskirts get transformed, or they might do 50-50 where they've got things above. But I definitely see a change there where they're going to open some possibilities to the residential space. What about yourself, Mark?
I reckon 2035, what does our office sector look like? I think work from home is particularly for certain industries is an absolute win. I think offices C and D grade are dead ducks. I reckon they are the worst performing office category for rental and for sale in the property market. They actually rent and sell for less than storage areas.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they're not very good. But the A and B class um, office spaces, I think will continue to trend well. And what I reckon is there's going to be an incredible blend of culture and food and entertainment, which will be replacing that balance of C and D stock. So with a little bit of residential as well. So I think all in all, our city in 2035 is going to be sexier on all the sexy points than it ever was, and work from home will be similar or a little bit less than what it is now. So I reckon if we're trending, that's the way we're trending. It'd be interesting in 10 years' time to look back on this.
Yeah, it will, and I think everyone's probably a little bit open to the CBD getting a bit of a jazz up. Even like a lot of the people I speak to that come from other countries in the past, they said they often make a comment of when they first came here or first in the CBD. Oh, they remember Sydney. Wow, hustle and bustle. It's all going on. You're like crazy, and then they sort of make a comment on today's version of the CBD, and they start falling asleep. So I think bring it on. It's Sydney. It may not be the capital, but I think when you think of Australia, the first thing you think of is Sydney, your Harbour Bridge, your Opera House. So I say bring it on. It's about time we had a bit of a spruik up of Sydney CBD, and then hopefully business and investors come in and do well, and everyone enjoys the space more.
And also, there's a bit of a duty there for politicians. I noticed some of the cities in the world now have a mayor during the day appointed, and they have a mayor called a night mayor, which is a mayor for the evenings. So they manage the what happens after dark. And I think I know Sydney has a night mayor. And I think those guys have got a lot of work to do to activate that city and those office areas and stuff. So interesting space to watch. What do you think? I'd love to know. Make your comments. And Josh, thank you, legend.
No worries, anytime. Thank you, Mark.
All right, guys, take care. See ya.